Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community, we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. We extend a special welcome to our visitors this morning. We're glad you're here and invite you to stop by our welcome table in the Robinson Lounge so that we can answer your questions and get to know you a little bit. Again, welcome to our congregation. We're very happy you've joined us. And today we welcome Reverend Charlie Dietrich, who was an active member of this congregation in the 1980s and 90s. In 2006, Charlie went to Berkeley, California, to attend Star King School for the Ministry and became a parish minister in Atlantic City, Norfolk, Virginia, and Erie, Pennsylvania. He is now retired and living in Kingston, New Jersey. Please welcome back Charlie. We have a couple of announcements. Please join Princeton Eats Plants for a plant-based potluck this Wednesday at 6 p.m. outside next to the Memorial Garden. Whether you're a seasoned plant-based enthusiast or just curious about incorporating more plants into your diet, the Princeton Eats Plants group offers a supportive environment for individuals to come together for plant-powered dishes and great conversation. Princeton Eats Plants meets the first Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. in the Founders Room, but this week we will be outside due to the spring sale. Please contact Joellen Burton or Vicki Campbell for more information. And our big announcement today is that the spring sale is coming, Friday and Saturday. You may not have been aware. Our biggest annual social justice fundraiser and community event. Today, Margie Stockwell, Helen Richardson, and their receiving team will begin accepting donations about 12:30 p.m., depending on how quickly we can get the booths and receiving areas set up. Right after the service, we need everyone who is able to stay and help us move furniture in Channing and Robinson Lounge, and then set up tables for the sale. Terry Hyatt, Kathy Bauer-Kogan, and Amanda Gillum will direct the upstairs setup activities. Kirsten Shearer will direct the downstairs setup. Please share this event on Facebook. Thank you in advance. Oh yes, and be sure to come to the sale. Thank you. And oh, yes.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are adapted from words by Reverend Clarence Skinner, a Universalist author and theologian. He writes, "Universalism from its beginning has interpreted all life as being essentially good. Abundant faith in humanity lights the flame of our vision and strengthens our nerve to mighty efforts. May this flame give us inner vision and strength."
And we represent the Evergreen chapter of the Covenant of UU Pagans. And that's a maypole. Who wants to tell me what that maypole used to be? Yule tree. Somebody said Yule tree. Somebody is right. And after it stopped being the Yule tree, as you can see, we cut off all the branches. And then what happened?
And then we did a lot of other stuff with it. We burned the branches on Imbolc.
Feels like saying why we did that.
Because we wanted to show faith that new branches would grow in the spring.
That's right. We burn the greens because you know what? We can afford to. We'll get new greens. What else?
Well,
What are we gonna do?
we're gonna walk around the maypole. We're gonna hold these ribbons and walk around the maypole. And some of us are gonna walk around clockwise, and some of us are gonna walk around counterclockwise.
We've got 12 ribbons here, so we need some dancers. And you can be small, but it would be helpful if Say correctly with you. Do not pass them. This is not a race.
Meanwhile, we have an insert in your order of service. We are going to sing. People not dancing can sit still and read and probably know the tune. And we're going to sing it fairly fast. This is not a Christmas carol at the moment. But they need music to dance to. And so that's us, and that's Sue over there. And we're going to do this in a sprightly manner. It's not a dirge.
We have to really yell into it? Is that it? We're gonna do it like this? Can we do it a little louder? Can you turn even louder? We need 2 people on this. Is that it? Try. Okay, a little bit because we're both tall. That's good. Okey doke. Good. So this is an old piece called The Innkeeper with the Mop. In his book, A Treatise on Atonement, 19th century Universalist minister Hosea Ballou tries to explain salvation with a story. The story is a bit dated, and Ballou's language is a bit hard to understand, so I've tried to keep with the original as much as possible while modernizing it. Jean DeVoe will play the part of a New England innkeeper who is a Puritan, and like almost everyone in New England at that time, believed that only pure people would go to heaven. All others would be tormented for eternity in hell. Reverend Hosea Ballou dedicated his life to preaching universal salvation, that everyone goes to heaven. Traveling from town to town across New England, in this story, he meets the innkeeper in the inn's lobby as he comes back to his room on a Saturday afternoon.
This is Mr. Ballou, I suppose?
Yes, ma'am, my name is Ballou.
Well, Mr. Ballou, they say you hold a belief that all people are saved by God. Do you really believe that?
Yes, madam, I really believe that.
Why, sir, do you really believe that all people are going to be saved? The thieves, the cheats, the liars, the promiscuous? Just such creatures as they are?
He saw that she did not understand what salvation meant, and he therefore adopted the following method to enlighten her. Dear lady, what is that thing you have in your hand?
Why, it's my mop.
So it is, and what are you going to do with it?
I'm going to mop the lobby floor. I always mop my inn's lobby on Saturday afternoon.
Oh, sister, I understand you, and this is a very well-kept inn. But I wonder, are you going to mop it just as it is?
Mop it just as it is?
Yes, you wish to know if I believe that all people will be saved in heaven just as they are. Do you intend to mop your dirty floor just as it is?
I mop it up to clean it.
Oh, I see. You do not require it to be clean before you consent to mop it. God saves people to purify them. That's what salvation is designed for. Why would God only save people who were already pure? And this is the essential message of universalism, that each and every person is loved by God, and by love, all are worthy.
Thank you, Sue, for that beautiful music. It's lovely. Good morning. When I first heard the topic of this talk, I wondered how I would ever come up with a reflection. It seemed like such an erudite topic, and one which I knew very little about, despite being a lifetime UU. But I've decided to venture forth despite my fears. I had plenty of exposure in my life to people who definitely didn't believe in universal salvation. I remember when I was 10 years old, I went to 4-H sleepaway camp and shared a cabin with a bunch of girls who were Catholic and one Jewish girl. The Catholic girls went around the room and asked everyone's religion. I said I was a Unitarian. I don't think I even identified as a Unitarian Universalist as a child. And I gave my childish explanation that it's a little bit of each religion. This group of mean girls, they didn't care. They asked if I'd ever had First Communion, and when I said no, they told me and the Jewish girl that we definitely weren't going to heaven. There was some debate about whether we would be going to hell or to purgatory, but they finally settled on purgatory because that's where non-believers went. Sorry, I missed my second page here. And I knew even then that they were wrong. And I turned to the little Jewish girl and I said to her, they're wrong. why would we go to hell or purgatory if we're good people? They're absolutely wrong. So I had my UU beliefs to fall back on there. More seriously, we recently watched The Zone of Interest, which is I don't know if any of you saw it, but it's a movie about a family living next door to the death camps in Auschwitz. It's a Nazi family, and they're going about their business in this beautiful house, in this beautiful yard. And meanwhile, in the background, you can hear the muffled screams of the people in the death camps and it's whirring machinery of the death camps, and the people go about their business and they talk. The commandant, whose name is Rudolf Hess, has these conversations with someone who's trying to sell him a better crematorium. And he has this conversation as casually as you might talk about what to have for dinner. And it just kind of ends with a picture of this, the boots and the shoes from Auschwitz. So I looked up what happened to this gentleman, and it turns out that he was tried at Nuremberg and hung at Auschwitz. And I have to admit, I was like, my reaction was good. He deserved to die, if anyone does. But our beliefs in the inherent worth and goodness of all people are hard at times like this, because you're trying to sort of look at that kind of evil and at the same time think about the inherent worth of goodness. And I feel like I couldn't forgive someone like that Rudolf Hess, and nor does he deserve it. And even hanging, possibly, he couldn't be hung 6 million times. He went to his death unrepentant. He claimed that he only murdered 1.5 million people, not 5.5 or 6 million. And I'm not sure if he deserves our forgiveness. But I feel like the only way for us to, since I'm a non-believer in God, and I don't believe in heaven and hell, so I can't kind of think about the just desserts later. It's tough to think about someone like that. I always liked the idea, even as a non-believer, of St. Peter standing by the pearly gates with a long, scroll-like thing. When someone evil comes up and asks to be admitted, St. Peter says, no, and I'll tell you why, and then goes through the entire list. But I really don't think that happens. And so I think when I struggle with this, and I think it's a real challenge, but I think we have to hold on to our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all people, nevertheless, while still recognizing that kind of evil. That seems like the only path to salvation for us. And I realize this is difficult, but I feel like we can't have that belief and then have some fine print that says, and we have the following exceptions, and then go down the line. That we can only hold on to the belief that there is evil in the world, but that there is inherent worth and dignity in people. I think we have to kind of go with Martin Luther King's words, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. By offering love and maybe even forgiveness, we can remain true to our principle of universal salvation. Thank you.
That was beautiful. What was the name of that piece? The Flower Song? Very good, very appropriate for this morning. Our reading this morning is by Carl Seberg, Reverend Carl Seberg. He wrote, "What Clarence Russell Skinner was doing for his time and challenging us to do for our time is to continually reshape the churches that we inherit, whether as ministers or as lay people, so that they can face up to new challenges and opportunities of the days that lie ahead. We must continue the kind of work that Skinner made central to his life's ministry, always building a new kind of church, always reaching out for a vision of the church that lies just beyond our grasp, but with hard, dedicated work can be conjured into being. Thus endeth our reading. And we go over to this pile of paper. So as I see it, ministry connects what is with what can be. This morning, I want to talk about ministry, and I want to use the 20th century Universalism, specifically the life of Reverend Clarence Skinner, as an illustration, a model, maybe just an interesting story. I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't really know who Clarence Skinner was. He died before I was born, and unlike those 19th century ministers, he isn't particularly talked about. But I'm getting ahead of myself. And speaking of being born, I was born in Boston and christened in a Unitarian church at age 5 months. The church would be Unitarian until I was almost 6 years old, when merger, or whatever else they called it, happened, and it became Unitarian Universalist. When I was growing up, every church service included a creed, like the Nicene Creed, but Unitarian, with wording from the late 19th century or the early 20th century. We believe in the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, the leadership of Jesus, salvation by character, and the progress of mankind onward and upward forever. I have that really well memorized. We said it every Sunday, and I really never questioned it. Looking back on it, though, I can see that fatherhood of God has 3 problems. The first one is fatherhood, and the second one is God, and the third one is of. Brotherhood of man could have been phrased differently. It could have become, perhaps, knowledge that all persons on earth are our relatives. Or, as it says in the book of Acts 17:26, God hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell together on the face of the earth. Salvation by character. This is a belief that all the good people go to heaven. It's part of Puritan doctrine that the Unitarians inherited. Very different from the doctrine that Hosea Ballou preached. And the leadership of Jesus, well, yes, he did say a lot of good things. Many of his followers have given their lives to improve this world that we inhabit. And then there's the last line, the progress of mankind, and I'll talk about that one later. The creed was good enough for me at that age. It gave me something solid to believe in. And then I went to summer camp. Not the YMCA summer camp, which taught me how to shoot a rifle and how to scrape dishes at the dining hall. The Universalist summer camp in Maine, that now technically was Unitarian Universalist, but it had been a retreat center from the summer heat for Universalists for decades. As kids at camp, we didn't really worry much about creeds. We worried about volleyball and the talent show, swimming amidst the icebergs of the Gulf of Maine, and buying ice cream from the camp store. There was only one clearly religious thing in camp. It was a large table with a line from the first letter of John, chapter 4, verse 8. It said, God is love. And really, that was a good enough statement of belief for me. The Universalist Church started with that one postulate: God is love. Everything else flowed from there. When Universalist beliefs first became safe to talk about in the 1770s or so, there was a debate about why everyone went to heaven and when. Universalist churches each had their own understandings of why and when, but not what. And Hosea Ballou and John Murray, who you may have heard about, disagreed very much so. But that's a different sermon. By the time Clarence Skinner came along, things had mostly settled down. But the question was, okay, now what? Skinner was a third-generation Universalist. He wasn't interested in being a minister at all. He majored in acting in college. But actors have to make money. So he took a job as an assistant minister of a Universalist church in New York City, preaching as a fill-in speaker, and he was a good one. In 1906, he gave up acting and was ordained at a church in Westchester County, New York. If ministry connects what is with what can be, then growing churches was one of the things that Clarence Skinner was good at. He also saw the need to understand what is, as in what is, connecting what is with what can be, what is in New York City. So he became active visiting settlement houses and seeing how the other half lived in tenements and the like. He became active in what's called the social gospel movement, and he became a pacifist. After 4 years, he built up the Mount Vernon, New York church, and he moved on to a larger one in Lowell, Massachusetts. That's north of Boston. There he experimented with holding a church forum for the community. Very successful, with speakers on religion, politics, economics. By 1914, he was invited to join the faculty of Tufts University's Crane Theological School. As I see it up to this point, he was living in the abstract, doing good things, making people happy, showing them what the possibilities could be. When the United States entered World War I, things got real. His principle of pacifism was not only unpopular, it caused him to be shunned. The church near Tufts, where he was part-time minister, terminated his contract. People threw eggs at him when he spoke in Concord, Massachusetts. Oh, cradle of liberty, what's going on here? The dean of Tufts honored his professorship and did not have him fired, but refused to even talk to Skinner during the war. Now, in the Unitarian part of the world, a similar loyalty pledge requirement was enacted. And one New York minister, John Haynes Holmes, refused to give up his pacifism. He left the American Unitarian Association, and so did his church, becoming the Community Church of New York, even though most church members were not pacifists. Again, they honored the calling that they had given to the minister more than the association's demand for conformity. Holmes, as some of you know, helped to found the NAACP and later the American Civil Liberties Union, so he did okay. Skinner and Holmes would work together to found the Community Church of Boston, a non-denominational church led by Skinner. Skinner may have been a good actor. He may have been a good grower of congregations. He may have been a good organizer of community forums, but he was truly gifted as a theology professor. One student put it this way: He had an uncanny ability of clarifying ideas. Whatever the subject happened to be, he approached it from all sides, analyzed it clearly, and then, without forcing his conclusions, laid it out before the student so that the student might choose what truth was or what course of action to pursue. This student was quick to add, one was never in doubt as to what Skinner himself thought. Another student wrote of him saying, "You are one of the most tolerant, patient, and righteous men I have had the pleasure of knowing." On April 24th, 1924, 100 years ago, Clarence Skinner published a poem in one of the Universalist newspapers. He had endured the hatred of his denomination, the hatred coming from his university. He had watched 8 million men being ordered to their horrible deaths, 7 million other Europeans who died too in that senseless and cruel war. And then death came home with the influenza pandemic. Liberalism died in the Russian Revolution. The Brotherhood of Man died in violent racism and lynching. Gangster violence during Prohibition, and laissez-faire isolationism and the failure of the League of Nations. Skinner's poem, called In Times of Disillusion, began, "The world has grown unutterably old, a place of bitter disillusion. Like some sad ruin out of ancient time, half buried in obliterating sand. So seems the gallant world of yesteryear to one who fellowshipped with wistful dreams." And then, "The house where we held rendezvous with hope is dark. The dreams are gone." But then he shifts. Dreams outlast the dreamer. And therefore I'll dream. I'll light a candle yet again, illumine the dark, forsaken house, bring back the folk who thrilled at glimpses of a fairer world. And he ends, "I'll still proclaim the vision splendid till it strikes God fire in old and broken hearts and urges on a world to consummate its dream. I light a candle and I dream." By the 1930s, Crane Theological School at Tufts had grown from 4 students when Skinner arrived to 45 students, with Skinner now appointed dean. In 1936, he helped organize a mind-shifting conference, which he co-led at Star Island on the Isles of Shoals off the New Hampshire coast. Attendees were from a group called the Leiden International Bureau, Dutch and other Europeans, Canadians, and folks from the USA. Their theme was the future of liberalism in a world of authorities. Only weeks before the conference, Italy had invaded Ethiopia. Germany had remilitarized the Rhineland. In 1937, he published a book, Liberalism Faces the Future. It was based on what he learned at the conference. He noted that radical leftists despise liberals. Indeed, liberals in Russia who had helped depose the Tsar were later shot by the Bolsheviks. To the Marxian, liberalism was called a weak and wobbly bourgeoisie program which offers nothing but amiable futility. How could one be liberal in a coming totalitarian world? Skinner defines his liberalism as a system or attitude which opposes illiberalism. Liberalism recognizes the place of authority, but it challenges it by asking why, how come, and by what process. It encourages experimentation and tests both new ideas and old established ways of thinking. Skinner says, liberalism looks forward for sources of new light to break from the darkness. It pries open the mind and surveys the universe for new, perhaps disturbing points of view. It yields to truth, but not to its own conception of truth. Let's listen to that again. It yields to truth, but not to its own conception of truth. But Clarence Skinner knows that liberalism has many weaknesses. He spends an entire chapter just listing them all. Liberals, he wrote, have been notoriously unwilling to face the ugly facts of sin, cruelty, and defeat, which are also characteristics of the race Homo not to sapiens. Not only that, Skinner writes, impatience with the slow and rigorous process of testing truth and the urgent need for immediate decisions have challenged liberalism and in many places crushed it so completely that the free press no longer exists. A person dare not say what they know to be true. Prejudice distorts reality until it is no longer recognizable. And the people are herded like innocent sheep. Oh, Clarence Skinner, you could not know just how true those words would become. I assume the conference broke up with many ideas, but no good answers. And perhaps some of the attendees were to die under Nazi rule. Skinner's book did have a few bits of inspiration, though. He wrote, liberalism cannot merely cry horror at communism and fascism without offering a constructive substitute, which is a realistic solution to the problems of modern chaos. If we oppose the tragic curtailment of freedom, which is characteristic of the totalitarian state, how can we offer the like security within a liberal state? Where is that everlasting yes? Society wants positive, constructive truths, elevating and nourishing values, the truths that all might live by. Well, it's about 90 years since he wrote that book, which is now pretty much unknown. Are we as liberals offering realistic, constructive substitutes for authoritarianism? Do we listen to all points of view or only those that match our own conception of truth? Do we work for solutions or only oppose? Skinner also said, alas for the person who has never been indignant, but also for the poor soul who has never been anything else. Clarence Skinner died in 1949. In an essay published after his death, he wrote, and I paraphrase, in the present struggle to establish unity, justice, freedom, and love, one quality is most important. That quality is faith, not belief, faith. Faith is more than an assurance of things not seen. It is an adventure after them. Belief digs itself into the trench of creed. Faith knows no horizon. Wow, what do you think of faith? Not belief, faith. And so it brings us back to the Unitarian creed of my youth. And the final line, which was, we believe in the progress of humankind onward and upward forever. Here's my answer. Progress is not something to passively believe in. Progress is not a gift from God, but it is a human gift to the universe. Have faith and apply that faith to works. And over the long run, progress is a pretty good bet. Ministry connects what is with what can be. As Universalist minister Clarence Skinner wrote, abundant faith in humanity lights the flame of our vision and steels our nerve to mighty efforts. Amen. The words of former Senator Bill Bradley. He said, I'm in the optimism business. I can't afford to see only the dark side of things. It starts with a set of values of what you believe about what is possible. There is a common humanity that we all share. I'm betting on the common humanity. Don't underestimate the human spirit. Don't underestimate our common humanity. Amen.